Back on Radio Row here at the talkSPORT booth, building up to Super Bowl 59 live, of course, on talkSPORT Sunday evening from 10:30 on UK radio. Pleasure to say I'm now joined by a man who's been keeping busy, broadcaster on CBS Sports, an analyst, former NFL defensive lineman, Leger Douzable joins us. Pleasure to have you alongside me. How are you doing? How are you enjoying this week? Must be busy.
Yeah, it's always a busy week. It's always fun because at Media Row, you always get to see guys you used to play with. You get to see other personalities in the media space that you maybe don't see throughout the year. So it's always great just being able to catch up with old teammates, old friends, old colleagues during this week.
In terms of, you played for a host of different teams in the NFL spanning your career, and I just wanted to touch on a couple of them in particular. Starting with the New York Jets and the moves that they've made this offseason, new GM, new head coach in Aaron Glenn, and feels like there's a lot of excitement in the building with Aaron Glenn coming in. How do you see that fit with a first-time head coach and a first-time GM in the Jets organization as they try to come out of this spiral that they've had in recent years, really?
Aaron Glenn, I thought, was a home run hire. Now, again, a guy that was a former Jet, knows what it means to wear the green and white, has bled, in that locker room on that field for the New York Jets, knows what it means to be a player in the New York media, which I don't think is talked about enough. Like, that's an important aspect of taking on that job when you're talking about being in the media capital of the world, right? So I thought it was a home run pick from that standpoint because he touted this job. He wanted it, right? He had a chance to go interview with multiple other teams, and he decided that New York was going to be his first stop, and they didn't let him out the door, and it's because he didn't want to be let out the door, right? When you look at his background, not only is he a former player, right? Obviously a former coach on the defensive side, but he's also a former scout. So I think that's a unique mesh when it comes to Aaron Glenn. He knows what's going on the scouting standpoint. So in regards to him and Darren Moogie, who you talked about is going to be a first-time GM, they'll be able to lean on each other, and Moogie can lean on Aaron Glenn because he's been on the side that Darren Moogie has been on. So, again, from that standpoint, I think it was a home run hire. It was great to have one of us back in the building because I think it's important when you're becoming a coach in a New York area team that you understand what it takes media-wise and how everything is under a microscope when you play for a New York branded team. And I think Aaron Glenn encapsulates that perfectly. And then just his press conference was amazing. Like, he talked about, my God, he had me wanting to suit back up, right? This is a guy that's a great motivator. And he always talked about, right, when you talk about leadership and commanding the room, like for him it's all about how he can relate to the players and then how he can lead. Like, that's the biggest thing for him. Like, leadership is what gets things done at the next level in the NFL when you become a head coach. So I actually love some of the moves he made, too, with the staff. Steve Wilkes, I thought, was a home run hire, a guy that can help Aaron Glenn because he is a former head coach, right? It's important to have that type of experience on your coaching roster as well. So I love the moves that the New York Jets have made.
I wanted to ask you about the Rams as well. I saw that you were on social media this week. Obviously, big news in terms of Cooper Kupp and now the fact that they're almost forcing him into a trade and he's going to potentially leave the organization. You were talking about two teams in particular who you think would be a really good fit for Cooper Kupp to come in, one of them being the Washington Commanders. Is that the fit you see with Jaden Daniels and coming into that offense and him and alongside Terry McLaurin? Could that be a really good thing for Dan Quinn to put together going into next season with aspirations already so high as well?
I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Because if Cooper Kupp comes in there, he can realize he doesn't have to be the number one guy. It was kind of tailing that way anyway in L.A. with Puka Nacua and his emergence. So you have a guy that's a consummate pro who's been consistent in this league. Now, the biggest knock on Kupp the last couple of years is health. He hasn't been healthy. I mean, since he won the Triple Crown, I believe in 3 straight years, the most he's played in is 12 games. And I think 2 of those seasons was 9 games.
Right.
So that's a real concern of him missing half the season. But coming into a team that hit the ground running with Dan Quinn and Adam Peters, right, and Cliff Kingsbury, Jaden Daniels, obviously, getting to the NFC Championship game, why not bring in another pivotal piece like a guy like Cooper Kupp who has championship experience, who can take some of the weight off Terry McLaurin, who's a veteran guy? I think he would build a real rapport with Jaden Daniels. It makes a lot of sense. And the other team that I talked about is maybe Cooper Kupp doesn't have to leave where he's at. The L.A. Chargers need somebody in the worst way. Now, people will say Ladd McConkey is a guy that has a similar skill set to him, but Cooper Kupp is a veteran player that can play all three receiver positions. He can play on the outside. That way you can kind of move him and Ladd McConkey around. They need a veteran pass catcher in the worst way for the L.A. Chargers. So I think those two teams make the most sense for Cooper Kupp.
Got to ask you before you go about this game this weekend, Super Bowl 59. In terms of so many angles to discuss, I wanted to ask first off, what is the one key matchup, the one key element of this game? It might be on personnel. It might be a lot of people have mentioned about the, Jalen Carter potentially up against Mike Caliendo and that sort of battle. What's really exciting you when you look ahead to Sunday in this game in particular?
To me, when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they have been the best team in the NFL stopping the run with 7 guys or less in the box. And it's because they have monsters at defensive tackle. When you talk about Jalen Carter, who just mentioned, also Milton Williams is having a career. He's going to get paid handsomely this offseason. Even Jordan Davis has turned it up the next few notches. My thing is, will Andy Reid be consistent enough to continue to run the ball if he gets those light boxes? And can this offensive line that I don't want to say it's been patchwork, but it's been moved around, especially because of the tackle position. You have to move your all-pro guard to tackle and Joe Thuney. Can they get enough push on these guys to consistently get 4 or 5 yards and stay ahead of the chains? Because if you allow the Philadelphia Eagles and their rushers to be in 3rd and long, it's going to be a long day, even if you are Patrick Mahomes, because Jalen Carter is a game wrecker. Nolan Smith has proven during this playoff run he can be a game wrecker. Josh Sweat is a guy that's a consummate pro who can always bring pressure off the edge. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. I know people were talking about the matchup between Mike Caliendo and Jalen Carter potentially. I'm going to look to see if the Chiefs are going to be consistent in running the ball versus light boxes. Now, again, the Eagles have been the best defense in football with a light box. But if you're Andy Reid, you want to have a performance like you had 2 years ago when Isaiah Pacheco was kind of like the key focal point of the offense that game. Like, people forget, Patrick Mahomes didn't even throw for 200 yards that game, and they won the game because they were more balanced. Will they have that same consistency in running the football versus light boxes?
Just a quick one on Jalen Carter. What has made him stand out so much this season? Because there's been comparisons, even Aaron Donald said himself, he's almost like the future since his retirement. What has made him stand out so much?
He's just a beast, dude. Like Jalen Carter, the stuff that he has, you get it in the womb. Like you can train as much as you want and still not have what Jalen Carter has. Like, you're born with something like that. Like, his size alone. Right, and the way he's able to move, the agility. I mean, I've never seen, and for people that don't understand what a wham block is, it's like from the outside in, a tight end is lined up outside the tackle, and then what they do is essentially it's like a trap block, right? The guard will flash and go down, and you're no man's land as a D tackle. This dude jumped over a wham block at 330 pounds. I've never seen that in my life. He's just a freak athlete, and then his pass rush ability and understanding how teams want to call protections, I think for a second-year player is out of this world. People talk about that Rams game in the wild card, how he faked like he was spiking to the right of the center and then beat him back left and got to the sack on 3rd down and did the same exact thing on the 4th down play to cause Matthew Stafford to throw an inaccurate throw and win the game. He just has a great understanding of how teams are trying to block him. And then they're really good at pass rush games. You got to go back to Nolan Smith and obviously Jalen Carter playing at Georgia, so they already kind of have that synergy already. So when teams think they can slide to him, they run a pass rush game and a guy comes free. So he's just a beast, and he's a dog in the run game. You can't block him on one guy. Like, every single down, we used to have a coach said 4 hands need to be put on that guy, and that's the type of guy Jalen Carter is.
Can't wait to see how it plays out this weekend. Thank you so much for joining us, Leger. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great time.
Thank you.